Welcome back to Fighting for Fair NZ, the YouTube channel dedicated to exposing the aggressive rollout of mobile phone towers by telcos like 2 Degrees against the wishes of concerned New Zealanders. Russel Norman, a former MP, wrote an excellent blog post in 2010 on cell phone towers, health and democracy that has since been pulled from the web but is still available using the Wayback Machine to read an archive version in its entirety, and you'll find it linked to in the description below. Norman's blog post was prompted by Vodafone proposing the installation of a cell phone tower near his home in Wellington, on top of a street light pole in close proximity to residential housing and a school. As is typical, Vodafone only notified 2 residents who in turn shared the news with their neighbours, one of whom was Russel Norman. Of course, Norman soon found out that legally there was nothing that could be done to prevent the installation of the tower. In this video, we're going to read the pertinent parts of Norman's blog post, as it is just as relevant today and explains very clearly just how it came to be that 2 Degrees, Spark and Vodafone have the right to erect a tower just meters from your home, and legally there isn't a damn thing you can do about it. Norman writes that there's a lot of evidence out there that casts some uncertainty over the safety of these masts, and enough uncertainty to suggest a precautionary approach to the issue. And yet, as I'll demonstrate, New Zealand's approach has been the exact opposite of the precautionary principle. How cell phone towers are put up in our neighbourhoods is a case study in how corporations exercise power, and how the Labour Party is complicit in this. Your right and Labour's NES. The extraordinary fact is that you have no legal right to have any say over the placement of cell phone towers on street poles on the road reserve. You have no legal right to stop them putting a cell phone mast 1 meter outside your kid's bedroom if that's where the street pole is, period. Your legal rights were all removed by the Labour government by regulation on September 8, 2008. Labour removed all of your legal rights while calling it something rather positive sounding. They did it by enacting a National Environmental Standard. Sounds good, doesn't it? Say it aloud and you'll feel positive about our government. National Environmental Standard. The NES says that so long as the telcos meet certain rules around the size of the cell phone towers and boxes, and meet an NZ standard NZS 2772 on the radiation coming out of the equipment, the telcos don't have to get any permission from local council or residents to put up as many cell phone towers as they like on street poles on the road reserve. Telcos and the NES. Now, Labour's NES is pretty draconian, forcing people to accept devices around their homes and schools that continuously emit radiation. So if you were going to impose such a draconian set of rules on people, you'd want to be pretty confident that independent people with a strong health focus wrote the rules, wouldn't you? Think again. According to the Parliamentary Library, Labour got the following people together to form the Telecommunications Industry Reference Group, which wrote the report that formed the basis of the NES. As you can see, there was just a single person who was there to represent a health perspective. The rest were either telcos or government agencies supporting the telcos or local government. The telcos had an interest in lowering the cost of putting up towers. The government department was there to help lower costs. And local government NZ was not there as a health expert, it was a jack-up. Labour then used the report of these people as the basis for the National Environmental Standard. Feeling safe and secure? But I hear you say, what about the New Zealand Standard 2772 that underpins the NES? That's got to be legitimate, right? I mean, a New Zealand standard just sounds solid and proper, doesn't it? We're the most uncorrupt country on the planet. Surely a New Zealand standard is the gold standard of health protection. Okay, here is the group that decided on the New Zealand standard according to the list at the front of the standard. Again, another committee dominated by industry and government departments with one health professional. A group dominated by those trying to reduce costs for telcos. The telcos and government departments supporting the telcos wrote the New Zealand standard that underpins the NES and guarantees its safety. Or does it guarantee its safety? It has this rather disturbing little disclaimer at the start. There is scientific research, including epidemiology, which has suggested associations between some adverse health effects and exposure to RF fields at levels lower than the basic restrictions specified in this standard. However, causation has not been shown. So they haven't guaranteed that it's safe. You may remember this language. It's the same language that the tobacco industry used about smoking. They were forced to agree that there was a correlation between smoking and disease, but quite correctly said that you can't prove causation. Of course, eventually causation was established, but the tobacco industry used exactly this same argument for years to fight off attempts to regulate tobacco. Summary. So in 1999, a committee dominated by the telcos and the Ministry of Commerce wrote the NZ Standard 2772 that sets the levels of radiation allowed from cell phone towers. Then a committee dominated by the telcos and MED used the NZ Standard as the basis for the National Environmental Standard that the Labour government adopted in 2008. This NES forces us all to have cell phone towers on any street pole in the country without any legal rights to object regardless of how close it is to people's houses or schools. I would wager that 99% of New Zealanders know almost nothing about this story, and if they did, they would be furious. But they'll only find out when the tower goes up, and that happens pole by pole. The government should have protected us from the telcos and operated a precautionary approach. Instead, they did their dirty work and willfully tied the hands of citizens and councils. The corporations have taken hold of our government, and Labour happily acquiesced. Now, Norman's blog post should be read in its entirety, so please check the link in the comments below, but his description is just as accurate today in 2019 as it was in 2010. The residents of Bangkok Crescent in Wellington had no idea that 2 Degrees could install a phone tower and didn't even need council permission to do it. In addition, 2 Degrees is installing a brand new pole. They're not simply attaching it to an existing light pole. So things have moved along nicely for the telco since Norman first wrote his article in 2010. And the same thing is happening right around New Zealand. For those few lucky enough to get a letter in their mailbox telling them that a phone tower will soon be installed, and all those not so lucky who wake up to see the tower going up outside their house, it doesn't take long to discover that democracy doesn't exist when it comes to phone towers in this country. Despite 128 residents on Bangkok Crescent saying no to 2 Degrees, they simply don't care and intend to proceed with the install. And this is not an exception to the rule, this is the rule. Telcos know they have the law on their side because they helped write the law and ensured that New Zealand citizens don't get a say. If you think Kiwis should have a say in whether a phone tower is installed next to their home, please like and share this video to help raise awareness and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.